Ross Bolen Podcast.
You better listen.
Welcome back to the Ross Bolen Podcast, otherwise known as RBP, presented by Bolen Media. I am your host, Ross Bolen, back again with your co-host, Chris Coulson. Christopher, how are you? New week. Slow wave.
Slow wave, wiggle wave.
Okay.
I'm trying to get better at my waves. I've been switching them up every week if you watch us on YouTube. Sometimes I do the regal wave with a little bit of a cup and a side to side.
It's very royal.
You know what I mean? Yes, thank you. Sometimes I just do the peace sign. Also, I've been working on my peace sign. I used to do the peace sign too pointed, you know? I've been trying to get looser, like 70s style, straight up and down.
Yeah, I feel you.
Hey, peace and love, man.
Peace
Peace
and love,
sign's
brother.
so underutilized, you know?
I'm a peace sign guy.
Yeah.
I chunk deuce
You
at a
go
lot of
this
people.
way, though?
I don't know. I feel
See,
like it's never straight.
I
It's
used to
never
go.
this.
I used to go this way. I'd give people the yo, what's up, man? Like
is too hippie.
sideways. Yeah, but now I've been switching it up to go like this. Yeah, like just a but you can't do doubles because then you're Nixon.
In
You don't wanna
Houston,
be
you just
Nixon.
chunk deuce at it. It's just like, all right, peace.
Damn, I want to move to Houston then. Does anybody do? Nobody does this at each other, do they?
Nah, this is the H.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What? Really?
Yep, dead serious.
Wow.
Which is way the hell better than what this... Because I was in this camp. I was one of these, like, is this our thing? Do we do this? Hold up our fingers and make an H?
Well, I went to Huff High School and we used to do this for Huff.
I went to West Side and we literally did the
Oh my
full-blown West Side. Like, yeah, when you go to West Side High
Fucking
School,
incredible.
I don't know what they were thinking there in HISD. They were like, let's name it West Side because it's on the west side of town.
I mean, to be
And
fair,
every high school kid was like, and now we're in a gang.
I mean that's better than going to like the Robert E. Lee High School Rebels or something like that.
Yeah, that was actually literally like a half mile from the high school.
Oh, really? Yeah. That doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. The only thing I knew about Texas Texas high schools before I moved to Texas was one, they had really big football stadiums.
Oh, yeah.
And two, I saw this video that went viral when they were thinking about changing the name of a Robert E. Lee High School in like rural Texas down like by San Antonio. And it was this video of this white girl crying because they were like something about, I don't know, her history or some shit. And she was like crying about how they were
that's very
changing the
sad. I
name of
feel
the high
terrible
school.
for
Yeah,
her.
it felt so bad. I was like, damn.
God,
this is
what
just
will they
crazy.
do now? How will the children learn?
How will she survive?
Now that the school doesn't carry the name of a
Confederate
very
general.
dead Confederate general.
That
I know.
lost.
That's a shame. Speaking of Texas, it snowed in Austin on Sunday.
It did.
The first like winter wonderland version of the city I have ever seen. Really the best snow I've seen in Texas in my life. Dallas snow doesn't count. Sorry, Dallas kids. It was glorious, but it was also a reminder, Chris, that by and large, snow is trash.
It's also a reminder that I forgot to tell you that I'm Elsa, actually, deep down. I just
wanna
bring
build a snowman?
I just bring the snow. I actually built you a snowman.
He did,
You ruined
and then
it.
I knocked it off the gate.
He did.
It was a small snowman.
It was.
welcoming me back to Bolen Media
Correct.
HQ on the gate. And when I shut the gate, Frosty fell to his death.
He did.
Much like Humpty Dumpty, and much like Humpty Dumpty, and me and all the King's men could not put him together again. But people who have listened to the show for a long time know I don't have a lot of familiarity with it. The first real snow experience I ever had was in this past decade, even. And I'm a 33-year-old man, but I grew up in Houston, in Texas. I went to school in San Marcos. I live in Austin. I'm a beach guy.
'Kay.
Vacations are for the beach
'Kay.
and for the sand and the ocean and for relaxing and getting tan.
Okay.
I've never been a snow guy. My family aren't ski people. I've actually never been skiing or snowboarding. I have been to Colorado several times. Yet. I was fortunate enough to get to spend some time in Vail and in Aspen, and it's a great place, and the snow is cool, especially when you're there in the mountains. But snow in like a city is trash.
Yeah. It's gross.
It's disgusting. It becomes like this melted, wet, disgusting slush of shit everywhere. It's all muddy and
brown it's just awful.
yeah.
I mean,
The fresh snow, beautiful,
Gorgeous.
beautiful. Give it a couple hours, disgusting, gross, awful.
It always blows my mind every single time like a tourist goes to New York or something like that
Yeah.
and post on Twitter. Or like, let's say an influencer, a photographer goes to New York when it's snowing. They post all these beautiful pictures on Twitter or something like that. And then my favorite part about it is the replies of like local New Yorkers that post the actual pictures of New York in the snow.
Yeah.
Of like 3-foot deep slush puddles of
Yeah.
mud and disgust that
Homeless poop.
you have to jump over to even cross the street. And they're like, fuck you, dude, get out of our city. Like, you don't know what it's like living here at all in the wintertime. It's disgusting. It's terrible. The worst thing about living in a northern city with snow, too, is there's always salt on the roads. So your car just constantly gets destroyed.
The salt preserves the bodies.
Oh. Okay, Hannibal.
In Home Alone. Remember that dude who salts the streets? You don't remember that? Kevin's neighbor salts the streets with salt.
Does he preserve
That's why.
bodies with it?
That's the neighborhood rumor that Buzz tells Kevin, which is why he's scared of the man who inevitably knocks out Harry and Marv with a snow shovel at the end of one to get them arrested. But then they get out and there's another one in New York.
I can't believe our president's first claim to fame was an appearance in Home Alone.
Down the hall to the left.
Unbelievable.
What
Anyways,
a turd.
yeah, it did snow.
Dogs won't go outside in the snow. They just shit and piss all over the house. It's awful.
That's not true at all.
It's awful. Got to take them out, set them down in the middle of the yard, and leave them there. And they stand for a little bit. What do I do now? Eventually, their feet get so cold that I better move. I've got like little sweaters for my dogs, not like full sweaters like you would think a human would wear, but they just go on their back so that the snow and the rain doesn't hit their back and keeps them nice and dry if they're out in the snow. I know other people who buy snowshoes for their dogs. That's fucking insane.
You don't wear sweaters that only cover your back?
No. It's not a bad concept, though. It might be the next fashion wave.
That's how I show people the nubile nips.
It's also slippery everywhere. Like, people are just eating it left and right in the snow, in the slippery snow in Texas. Nobody knows how to walk in this shit. It's fucking death trap. The streets and the sidewalks are turned into a death trap. And sure as hell, nobody in Austin, Texas knows how to drive.
Yeah,
in the snow, in the rain, they never knew how to drive. But in the snow, Chris, I felt in danger. First, it took. I was up north. I was in North Austin.
Yes.
I didn't have my car with me. Long story short, I needed to Uber back south to Bolen Media HQ. Takes 25 minutes for the Uber driver to get there. I assume because everybody's going 10 miles an hour. I kind of saw that part coming.
Yep.
But then I get in the Uber and I fired a picture of my driver to you.
Yeah.
I was like, this dude's about to shit his pants. He is locked onto the wheel, both hands.
10 and 2. 10 and 2.
I thought this man's locked in. He's going to keep me safe. He's going to get me home.
Bluetooth headset in. Very important.
So then I start most Uber drivers at this point. It's the guys who used to be taxi drivers. You can always tell them by if they have a Bluetooth headset. Mm-hmm. So we get on the road, and I'm like, dude's got me, right? Because of that picture.
Yeah.
So I'm texting, doing emails, checking out the Grom, and then I fucking look up, and I notice man is nodding a little bit, like he's got the. And then the dude falls asleep, Chris. And I've never been in the car with a human being who's fallen asleep behind the wheel before.
Nor have I.
So I didn't really know what to do. So I just yelled out, "Yo!" I was like, "Yo!" And he went, and like looked in the rear view, and he didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything, and we just made eye contact, and I was like, you just fell asleep. And he was like, I just fell asleep. And he just kept driving, but I had to watch the rear view the rest of the drive to make sure man's eyes were like staying alive. And he kept rolling down the window for like a split second to let some cold air in.
Yeah.
And then he kept going like that.
Yeah.
And he was playing. It was Sunday, and he was playing like Christian, like church music,
Christian rap,
which just made it even not rap, but it made it even weirder.
Christian
I was
heavy
just
metal,
like, this is how I go. Like, this dude's ready for Jesus, and I'm stuck here.
Oh, you think he was like inviting Jesus in for like when it all was?
Yeah, I was along for the ride with this cat
sure.
who was ready to see the end, and it was just like, this is why I bought the Tesla.
Yeah.
This is exactly why, because the Uber drivers can't be trusted. The man was asleep. And look, here's the sad part. I didn't even give dude like a low rating because this man's just out there trying to make a living. Like, I don't know how many hours he had driven, but it was clearly too many. I didn't know what to say to him after it was all said and done. He didn't really speak English, and I didn't want to be like, "Go home, sir."
Yeah. Go rest.
Home.
Yeah. Go
you
sleep.
must sleep. You're going to get yourself killed. Like, I didn't know what to do. It was just chaos, and I blame that all on the snow, which is trash.
Well, the scary thing about drifting off in the snow in Austin is all this, like, it doesn't really stick to the roads because it was still too warm, but it sticks to the medians of the roads, like, or the sides of the roads.
But morning, it was like full white roads.
Yeah.
Dude. It was crazy.
So, like, if you're drifting off to the side, like, you're getting in the slushy stuff. Like, that's not where you want to be at all. Like, that's a scary zone.
Hell nah. So stay safe out there in the winter wonderland, especially for those of y'all who live in cities where this is like your normal life. I don't know how you do it. It's awful. I'm wearing 4 layers of clothing. I look like the kid from fucking A Christmas Story who can't put his arms down anymore. And here we are, ready for another exciting episode of the Ross Bolen Podcast. We've got a guest today to close out, Chris. We're very excited about that. But first, RBP 364 is brought to you by Liquid IV. You all probably know Liquid IV for their popular hydration drink mix. I've been drinking it and talking about it for years, ever since they became a sponsor. Liquid IV is one of the most important parts of my hydration and energization game. I don't even know if that's a word. I might have invented it. I think we can all agree that 2020 was rough, obviously. It's time to clean the slate, start 2021 off on the right foot. Liquid IV can help. Their energy multiplier is awesome. It gives you that little extra boost we all need without the intense crash. One stick of Liquid IV's energy multiplier is like drinking 2 cups of coffee. It's an all-natural alternative to processed energy drinks for a sustained energy boost throughout the day. Half of Americans, Chris, report that they struggle with daily fatigue. You and I are certainly 2 of them. Usually by the time Chris and I get to the afternoon, it's like, you know how it is. It's that whole like cup of coffee that you need in the afternoon type of deal. But then that shit's going to have me the crash, and then I don't know if it's going to keep me strung out, and I'm not going to be able to sleep good. Liquid IV's energy multiplier has been much better for me. Obviously, with everybody struggling with fatigue, the signs include decreased focus, lack of motivation, poor mood, unhappiness. With Liquid IV's energy multiplier, you can upgrade your vibe and reach your constant state of awesome. It's got premium matcha and green energy blend taste, delicious, provides a lasting energy boost throughout the day. The boost you'd get from 1 to 2 cups of coffee without the crash contains a mixture of matcha, guayusa, and ginger. I don't know how to say the middle word. That's high in antioxidants that help improve mood and focus. All of the good things that you want. And Liquid IV is on a mission to positively change the world. The company has donated over 6.7 million servings of Liquid IV globally. In response to COVID-19, over 3 million products are being donated to hospitals, first responders, food banks, veterans, and active military. You grab your energy Liquid IV in bulk nationwide at Costco, or get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code ROSS at checkout. That's 25% off anything you order when you use the promo code ROSS at liquidiv.com. Start fueling your adventures today at liquidiv.com. Promo code ROSS. Time for some announcements and shouts. We got some birthdays. Happy birthday to King Bobby. Thank you for all the support. Happy birthday to Emily Cato on the 10th, which was yesterday, I believe. Happy birthday to Jay Gray. Jay Gray.
He's always coming in saying, hey, Crispy Chris and Boss. I think.
No, what's my name?
To Twitch.
Crispy Chris and something else. Nobody remembers mine. But thanks for being in nearly every stream. Enjoy your day, Jay Gray. We love you. We appreciate you and all the support that you give us. If you want to watch episodes of our show like Chris and I mentioned, you can do so on YouTube, youtube.com/Bolen Media, where every episode we wave to the cameras friendly style. If you want an ad-free episode every Friday, you can do so. Get that on patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast, Patreon, patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast to support the show and get an additional ad-free episode on Fridays. Now it's time for our first segment of today's show. Monday Mental Health Message. Coles, I watched the movie Vice over the weekend starring Christian Bale as Dick Cheney.
Okay.
Long story short, that's kind of a random start, but it
Sure.
reminded me that America, our country didn't just suddenly become chaos during the last 4 years. We've been wild as hell. And really, it reminded me that in life, it's important to never get too high or too low, right? It feels like we are all so low on our circumstances, especially in America in 2021, coming out of a really rough year. But come on, folks, the world has been a goddamn mess since time immemorial. If you really look back through the history of even since I was born 33 years ago or whatever, there haven't been a whole bunch of moments where it was like, things are going spectacularly across the board. In that sense, life is not about finding perfection, right? Seeking the extreme highs or wallowing in the extreme lows. You want to get to the middle. You want to find balance. Find your lane right there in between high and low. Find your place in the world and then kind of ride it. Like, this is a very hippy-dippy concept, but in terms of the energy that, you have as a human and the way it is impacted by others,
Yeah.
that's sort of the ride.
Yeah.
Don't let it get too low. You don't want to be too high. That's dangerous, and after the high comes the crash.
Yeah.
So the better you can stick in the middle, the better off you'll be. And for those who struggle with mental health like Chris and I, the middle is always the goal. The extremes, just as we've seen in politics, are not good. It's all about stability and finding happiness in your lane.
Well,
and
on the extreme left. I mean, we can talk about that another time. I'm not saying this.
maybe for you, not for me.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, it's like it's a difficult thing to manage, and it's one that, especially as you become an adult, is even more complicated and complex because of all the elements of your life that exist. But that's where we need to get back to.
This is something that I, as a younger guy, as somebody 12 years younger, is something that I struggle with much more than you do. Because...
Well, I've had a lot more practice.
Yes, absolutely. But like as you come out of your childhood, it really hasn't been probably but the last 3 years that you really need to focus on trying to stay in the middle, because your life is kind of like,
You're just
at
along
least
for
for
the
me,
ride at that point.
Yeah, at least for me, I was privileged enough to grow up in an area where I didn't really have to worry about too much,
Same
let's
as
say
me.
basic necessities.
Great childhood,
I knew
yeah.
that there was going to be food on the table every night. I knew I was going to have a bed to sleep in. So again, like you said, you're just kind of along for the ride. You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like
Very
nothing.
much so.
There's not really highs and lows. It's
You
just
don't
kinda
have
like
to
the
make a
way
lot of
life
decisions.
goes.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
You're
Yeah.
not making a lot of decisions.
Now that I'm on my own, it's difficult because I'm doing something brand new that I find love and passion. Thank you. I find love and passion in every single day. And so I want to find these highs to continue to ride that wave kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But on the flip side of that, if you let yourself, it's almost
They're
like,
misleading. You
well,
cannot ride on that high
that's
forever.
correct,
That's
that's
the
correct.
problem. So there's inevitably a come down.
correct. But also, I don't know if high and low is even necessarily the correct way to put it. I think it's almost more like, it's really all just about, for me, at least the way that I see it right now,
Yeah.
is about self-awareness. I need to be better at my self-awareness. I
Sure.
need to know when I'm at my highs so I can better protect myself for the inevitable crash
That
that
was-
is to come.
That was
Or-
basically how it was for me too, man. Like
Sure.
it was about learning how to manage my expectations,
Yeah.
my reality.
Yes,
and
yes.
sort of those days where you've described it before as almost, it can be like a manic feeling. You have these
Yes.
days where you're like, I don't have any of the fucking mental health issues I normally have.
fucking do
I'm
it.
not depressed. I'm not anxious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can go out there and crush, and you do. But then the next day you wake up and you're back to your normal state, or you're dealing with some of the issues that maybe sometimes bring you down, and it can be very crushing if you were like,
'Cause you're like, dude,
unrealistically
what the
expecting to wake
hell?
up in the place you were the day before.
Yes.
Like that's not always how it works.
And down to personal relationships as well. As an empath, it's really easy to get caught up in taking on other people's emotions onto your own, right?
Oh God.
One of the most important things that anyone ever told me was this girl, Mackenzie. She really emphasized the point of, a very good friend of mine, really emphasized the point to me of taking control of your own emotions. And at first it kind of sounded like a cop-out. You know what I mean? Where it's like, almost like it's like, take control, like, no, you're just overthinking that. Like, take control of your own emotions. Like, it's like
It's like a gaslighting.
you know what I mean?
strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And there were times where, there were things that we were both going through where maybe that was the case, but the overall message really did hit me deeper the more that I lived with it and tried to live through that. Because there are a lot of times that I put these unrealistic expectations on people based on an outcome that may never occur, and then I get disappointed when that outcome doesn't happen. When somebody doesn't do something that they were never supposed to do or never obligated to do, but in my mind, I made them already do it. Do you get what
So
I'm
it's
saying?
more about
here?
you than them. Yeah.
Exactly.
It ends
So,
up
like-
being your deal that you really need to look at. It's like, yeah, allowing someone else that power is not good.
No,
healthy.
not at all. But when again, as a 21-year-old empath, it's really easy to, like, when you're really invested in somebody, to give them a lot more power in your emotions. And at the end of the day, that can leave you feeling extremely lonely. At least it left me feeling
is
very
a-
lonely
it is
until
a
I learned
thing.
how to internalize those emotions, figure out what was, because a lot of things, 99% of your actions projected outward have to do with something that you're going through inward, I would say. And a lot of those things, like a lot of the outbursts and a lot of the anger that we direct towards other people, most of the time has something to do with what's going on within ourselves.
I would say always.
Yeah.
Always.
And so learning to first look inwards and internalize what's going on
It's
rather than
it's
to
about
just,
taking responsibility for your own emotions less than it is like anything else. Basically,
yeah.
and that's not something I've learned until even recently.
I'm not good at it, but I
that
know I
people-
should be doing it.
People that you surround yourself with are there for a reason, and you obviously want to spend time with people you love and care about. But those people also all carry their own energy and problems. And if you allow that energy and those problems to enter you, your life, your energy field, your body, whatever you want to call it, it can be devastating. You have to be really careful how you manage as an empath, as a person who really picks up on other people's energy and emotions and mood, how that affects you. And it attaches to something that I got to experience for the first time on Friday, which I spoke about on Patreon's episode this past weekend. I got an energy clearing Reiki massage on Friday. First time I've ever gotten a massage, period, professionally. Definitely the first time I've ever gotten a Reiki massage, which just means they do some energy work and they put like these bowls on your chest and your belly and your back that make cool noises, and the point of the massage was multifaceted.
Yeah.
In the case of Reiki, it is really about energy release and making sure you get rid of and clear yourself of all the energy that other people are putting onto you. And in the case of our job, it's even more intense because we have thousands and thousands of listeners, a lot of people we communicate with on a daily basis. We get a lot of energy that we suck up as empaths. And it's the reason when I left that massage, first thing I did was book you one and me another one.
And also,
because I was like, this is a thing Chris and I are going to need for the foreseeable future in our careers. We carry and suck up the energy of a lot of people that we interact with on a day-to-day. And that can be very confusing. It can feel like it's your emotion that you need to, like, I'm talking to the level of, this is how bad it is for me, man. If I drive past a homeless dude with a dog and a sign, I can suck all the energy out of that image and that human and that dog situation into me and let it fucking be brutal.
Yeah.
Like, make me cry, depressed. And that isn't a good way to live.
No, and a difficult spot that we find ourselves in specifically is just the way that this podcast works and the way that we work as humans as well.
But it applies to everybody on a lower level.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, everybody that's a part of our community probably feels the exact same way because, like,
no, I mean everybody in the world.
Oh, sure,
picks up energy off everyone they interact with.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But for us specifically, we're not, therapists or psychologists or anything like that. Like, we're not here to offer, not from professional advice. Yeah, professional advice to, like, fix you or anything like that. All we are kind of like a community of, like, you are not alone. Like, that's our mantra. It's just to give you a place where you know that other people are going through the same shit. We talk about what's helped us. Maybe it helps you. Maybe it doesn't. But, like, we're in a spot where everybody in our community, it's kind of like this big interlocking web of energies constantly going back and forth, of emotions constantly going back and forth, where, like, if we don't actively treat that, like, there has to be a release. You know what I mean? It could be very easy for all of us that are in this community to kind of internalize all of that. And it needs to be a constant ebb and flow of, we have to get these emotions out of us as well.
And that, again, applies across the board, though, because it's like, that's just life. Everyone we interact with throughout the course of our lives passes energy onto us, passes knowledge onto us. There's just so much interaction. And for empaths, it can be particularly dangerous if you're allowing too much of that to affect you on a day-to-day, especially because most human beings are not well all the time. Yeah. Like, that is most of us. So if you're spending time with all the other humans and a lot of them have issues, you got to make sure that those issues remain their issues and not yours. You have your own set of issues to deal with. Letting everybody else's energy and shit bleed into your life isn't great. So it's about, again, finding balance in that, in your day-to-day emotions and seeking out that middle and trying to limit the amount that those around you feed you energy. You need to pick up your own and take care of your own energy and emotions. And that can be very, very difficult as a human being. So it's something that day-to-day you have to check in with yourself. I know how all these people around me feel. What about me? How do I feel? Am I accidentally carrying too much of this other stuff that my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my dad, my uncle, my sister, my brother, my friend is dealing with that's not even mine? Like, you have to look at that stuff, and it's not something I did until I was probably 30 years old, man. Like, I just sort of went about my day with my friends and my family and my girlfriends and whoever the fuck, and whatever happened, I allowed that to impact me in the way that I felt it was supposed to. Yeah. Which was fully. I never put up a barrier. I never tried to cushion myself from other people's shit.
You can operate, quote unquote, successfully doing that for your entire life, but at the end of the day, when you're by yourself, like, you're going to feel, for me at least, I would feel broken and empty because I gave all of myself away. I had nothing left.
And it's very dangerous, that prospect. And it's something that as humans, it doesn't just happen. It happens a lot in marriages and in relationships, sexual relationships, where one person ends up sucking out of the energy out of the other person.
It could be a coworker, dude.
It's like, absolutely, but it happens a lot with sexual relationships.
Most definitely.
But to your point, there's levels to that with every kind of human relationship. Your fucking mailman can have an impact on your emotions, on your day. You know what any interaction.
Yes,
so you really, you got to put stock in that and make sure you pay attention to it and that you're willing to analyze it and give yourself time to make sure that the things you're carrying belong to you.
Yes.
And if they don't, seek out some of these methods that Coles and I have explored over the past year, whether it is something as simple as getting a run in or a jog or whatever version of fitness helps you, or if it's something like going to a Reiki massage therapist, because that, for me, turns out this is one of the tools. Immediately added it to the tool chest. going to be something that I get Coles and I to at least once a quarter so that we can make sure we're staying a little more free.
Loosey-goosey.
It was the first time in a while when I left that room, though, and when the massage ended, as I said on Patreon, like I just started crying because it was such a release. But it was the first time walking out of there that I felt light in a long time.
Yeah, Ross came in levitating.
I was floating, and it was beautiful, and I loved it. It was awesome. Great Christmas present from the girlfriend. Very appreciative, and also highly recommend for everybody. I can't wait for Coles to speak more on. We'll talk more about it after Coles has his experience too, and I have my second one. The first one is like
10 days.
That was a lot, man. So yeah, soon more come on the Reiki massage clearing, but it was phenomenal. And as our Monday mental health message, I just wanted you all to remember: stay in the middle. Find yourself a middle. If you're too high, seek the middle. If you're too low, seek the middle, and you will survive. RBP 364 is also brought to you by Cuts Clothing, fellas. It's 2021. It's the year of the rally at Cuts, and as we kick 2020 into the rearview mirror, it's time we start dressing for the occasion. And for the man that's always on, there's Cuts Clothing. They've taken a classic men's fashion staple, the plain tee. They refined it, combining premium quality with minimalistic aesthetic. They've got shirts, polos, hoodies, crew sweatshirts, all made for the man who works hard, plays hard, and never settles for less, all in the sport of business. Built for performance in the boardroom, the bar, or the gym, Cuts Clothing keeps you sharp wherever the game takes you. Take the plain tee, make it Tony Stark. The bleeding edge of fabric technology meets the man confident enough to wear it. Cuts Clothing. Chris and I have got their hoodies, their T-shirts. Y'all have seen us wear them all. Chris has one of their tees on right now.
I do.
I wear them routinely. I had a hoodie on last night on Twitch. Cuts Clothing, very, very comfortable. The most well-fitting tees I've ever found. In 2016, their founder, Stephen Borelli, set out to create the perfect T-shirt, one that complemented every occasion, that didn't make you look like trash when you wanted to wear a T-shirt out in public, which is literally my life's calling. And the end result was what GQ magazine calls the only shirt worth wearing at Cuts. It's buttery soft. It's incredible. They've got their signature buttery soft Pika Pro Tri-Blend tee. It's a bold new take on a classic design, combining the ultimate blend of high-quality fabrics. Look, it's the perfect T-shirt. It has been accomplished. You can get it at Cuts. They also set out to create fabric uniquely engineered for each clothing style and did that. Their new Cuts hoodie is incredible. They've got the Hyperloop French terry fabric, a textile that's temperature-controlled and ageless. You'll never need to take it off. You certainly won't want to. Or you can try the wrinkle-free Pika Polo, an LA design that keeps you fitted for the office, the golf course, at home, the gym, or your next date. Entrepreneurs, mavericks, athletes, podcast hosts, everyone loves Cuts. It's the only shirt worth wearing. Kick off 2021 the right way. Start with your wardrobe. Get 15% off your first order by going to cutsclothing.com/RBP. That's CUTS clothing.com/RBP for 15% off the only shirt worth wearing. Next segment. NFL on Nickelodeon. For the unaware, the network I grew up watching as a small boy, where I watched Rugrats, Doug, Rocko's Modern Life, and the like. Nickelodeon hosted an NFL game on Sunday. And Coles and I flipped over to, who was it? The Bears and the Saints, maybe?
Bears and Saints, correct? Yes, sir.
On Nickelodeon. We flipped over to watch it. And at first we were like, I don't know, man. There's a lot going on here. These graphics are insane. What the fuck is the slime zone instead of the end zone? The first down marker was vibrating and shit. It was chaos.
The commentators were using terms like lit and bet and mood and like Gen Z
really,
terminology.
Really weird. It was like the commentators were going for a different angle that was kid-friendly, but then they would like randomly throw in an analogy from adult commentating, like fast as a bullet.
And then they would go right back to explaining the very basic rules of football itself.
It was really bizarre. After several minutes, Chris and I realized, though, this is how sports were meant to be viewed for people who smoke weed or do hallucinations.
Yes, like, most definitely. There were animations on all of the characters all the time. Yeah, literally. Like it was like somebody was at a editing video board thing, and they were literally pressing every single button that was on there to give the players every single animation that they had to offer. There were hearts, there were googly eyes, there was a lot of fucking slime.
It looked like a video game.
Much slime.
Oh god, every time somebody scored, they literally would slime the end zone from both sides, and at one point there was a referee standing over the slime cannon that he could not see because it's not really there.
Yes.
It's CGI'd into the game after the fact, and it looked like he was just cumming buckets of green slime all over the end zone, which was truly disturbing but also incredible. You can't see anything happening in the end zone during the slime zone.
not a bit.
It's chaos.
Which you don't care about anyway. Who cares? I don't want.
Just
I don't
want
care
the
about
slime.
that one.
I loved when they did the it went full video game with it, and there were like hearts and animations like coming out of players' heads and shit. I loved when they would throw up. It was like it was like Mitch Trubisky is exactly like
Patrick Starr.
Yeah. Everybody had a different.
Alvin
they
Kamara
They
got
literally
compared
compared Breeze and their backup QB that they always bring
Taysom
in
Hill.
to SpongeBob and Patrick.
Yep.
And I was like,
They compared Alvin Kamara to Alvin from Alvin and the Chipmunks as well.
and they would put up on the screen. You know how normally during an NBA game it'd be like Rockets versus Cavs or Rockets versus Lakers, whatever, and they'd be like James Harden and LeBron James, and their stat comparisons. So it was Drew Brees and Hill, and then Patrick and SpongeBob. Those aren't even real people.
Really?
Coles was making the joke, like, imagine working your whole life to make it to the NFL. You're Alvin Kamara, like leading rusher or whatever. And then the graphic that they throw up for you is like comparing you to like
A fucking animated chipmunk.
a guy who tries to steal the Krabby Patty formula or whatever. It's just like, what is happening here? But seriously, it ended up being like, the thing about normal NFL games and the commentary, it just takes itself so freaking seriously. And you're just like, I don't know, man.
So I'll be honest, if it was a Panthers game, I don't know if I would fully enjoy it, especially if we were losing. I think I would hate it, honestly. But this is the best way to watch a football game for two teams that you do not care about. By far, hands down, no comparison.
I would argue, though, that in your situation where your team is meddling at best
fair.
and
That's
mine, this is much, much more enjoyable. I'm not
Okay,
trying to
fair.
watch real commentators tell me why the Texans suck. I'm trying to watch a fucking 13-year-old in a bomber jacket and a hoodie inexplicably tell me that it is truly lit down on the field. And then try to explain to me when the players get into a fight that sometimes this is just how it be in the NFL, or in football, I'm sorry. That was fascinating. There was just a lot going on.
The F-bomb on Nickelodeon was fascinating. Has to be the first F-bomb to ever make it on Nickelodeon.
They legitimately had one of their commentators, who was a female, do a full-blown Cardi B impression, giving her takes on the game. And then after it ended, somebody in the background went, "What the fuck?" And it came through on the microphones. And then one of the other commentators goes, "Okay." And they just moved on. And nobody cared. And that chick looked exactly like Missandei from Game of Thrones.
You know, she was 15.
That was a 15-year-old girl?
Apparently. That's what Twitter said.
Well, she can't be on there anymore. But everybody else was good. They're all allowed. I don't know about that. The 15-year-old doing the Cardi B impression might need to go. But everything else was awesome. This was literally how I would watch every NFL game in the Nickelodeon style if it was offered. This was significantly better. I don't
Sean
care
Payton
that
got
Tony
slimed,
Romo
too.
could fucking... Oh, yeah, Sean Payton. His quote about getting slimed... Like, they asked all the coaches, like, "Oh, what do you feel about being slimed in the Nickelodeon game?" And Sean Payton was like, "You know, I don't really want to be slimed, but I really want to win. And if that's what it takes, then I'm down to be slimed." It was just sort of slutty. It was just like, yeah, come on, Sean. Like, stand up for yourself.
He wanted to get covered in that oozy
Look,
green.
I'll take it in the face if we get the dub, but that's really the only reason I'm down with being slimed. Slime, for those of you who may not know, was like, Nickelodeon had this show where you got slimed. I think it might have been called Slime.
It was like a network wide thing. Like Nickelodeon
It was their
just
biggest
always
show
had
at one
slime.
point, yeah. And then everybody started getting slimed.
they incorporated it into the Nick Awards,
Yep.
which was like every year they would give out those orange blimps. I just remember Drake Bell won it one year for Drake and Josh and his song off of Drake and Josh. That's all I really remember about the Nickelodeon Awards. It was a good time though. People used to
Nickelodeon
really give a
Awards.
shit. People used to really give a shit about that stuff.
They had Slime Fest. I don't know if they still have that or not.
Oh, I'd love
Awesome.
to go to Slime Fest.
Things people need to know, though, it's freezing.
The slime is?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Very, very cold. It's only 2 ingredients. It looks like applesauce or oatmeal or flour and or Jell-O. Oh, I'm sorry. In 2015, it was made up of vanilla pudding and green food coloring, and that was it.
Oh God.
There are other recipes that include applesauce, oatmeal, flour, and or Jell-O, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm out on slime now. That sounds disgusting.
They were actually not the first network, according to 17.com, to slime kids. That was a Canadian CTV show that ran from 1979 to 1990 called You Can't Do That on Television. That was the first to slime people.
That sounds sus. You can't do this on television was just oozing all over people.
There was also a green slime cereal at one point and a green slime ketchup that still exists, which is interesting.
Did you ever get the purple ketchup when you were a kid? Your grandma ever buy that for you or anything?
Vaguely remember it.
My grandma used to buy me the purple ketchup. That's all I really remember about it.
17.com also says there's a book called Slimed, an oral history of Nickelodeon's golden age.
It's a book, and it's an oral history?
That's a good point. It also needs to be amended because the golden age is now, as the NFL and Nickelodeon is the perfect pairing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's just conceptually, the fact that they were like, all right, it's the most violent sport on earth. Let's cater it to children.
Well, I saw, all these corny little tweets from parents and stuff like that was like, my child watches Nickelodeon every day but has never sat down with me to watch a football game. Today was the first time little Jimmy ever watched a football game from start to finish. Thank you, Nickelodeon.
Fast forward 20 years, little Jimmy has CTE and can't move his left leg.
Yeah, fuck you, Nick.
Think about the kids. It was awesome, though. I'm down to watch every single one of these, frankly.
Let's be honest, it was made for the stoners. Like, it was not made for children.
Nah, this is for us, man. This is right up our alley, and anytime they want to broadcast it, I'm in. So Nickelodeon, bring it on. NFL, see the potential here. Please lock it in. And move Tony over there. Romo's a child. Put his ass on Nickelodeon.
I don't want Romo commentating Nick. Dude.
I kind of feel like listening to his cheesy ass try to make kids understand football. Hey kids, they're gonna run left.
You know, actually, if Tony Romo is gonna be a successful commentator in the NFL, doing it for 8-year-olds is really his best shot.
I think if you made the argument that he's not already a successful commentator in the NFL, I would call you insane.
I mean, monetarily,
he's getting paid $17 million a season.
I just think he sucks. I just hate when Romo commentates my games.
He's beloved, though. Many people enjoy Tony.
If you're from Dallas.
Many Dallas sites. Dallas Sinners. What? RBP364 is also brought to you by Fit Track. The best part about a new year is getting a clean slate. And speaking of clean, I've already got some 2021 health plans in place. Chris and I crushed RossFit in 2021. In 2020, rather. But in 2021, we're going next level. I've got running back into my routine as well as the weights. I'm eating healthier. We're elevating, baby. Elevate, elevate, elevate. I want to be my healthiest self, and I don't just mean I'm trying to lose weight or anything like that. Thanks to Fit Track, Chris and I can get in-depth insights on our fitness progress and reach goals faster. Fit Track is awesome. It's all about measuring your health, not just your weight. It's the Dara Smart Scale that measures 17 vital health metrics, including BMI, hydration levels, muscle mass, and so much more. And with Fit Track, you get personalized insights and a clearer picture of your overall health with their app, which is incredible. Also, because the Dara Smart Scale accurately hones in on your unique body type, it gives you the information you need to get the results you want. And with Fit Track, you can build better habits, make real long-term lifestyle changes versus quick fixes, be able to compare your goals to the progress you're actually making with Fit Track's measurements to keep you accountable and motivated. You know your body and the areas you need to focus on. The Dara Smart Scale can help you reach fitness goals 8 times faster. Plus, it syncs with the free Fit Track app. All of your health insights are saved in one place. You can also add up to 8 users on the Dara Smart Scale so everyone in your family can use it too. Tells you everything you've ever wanted to know, Chris, in terms of detailed analytics about your health, body weight, muscle mass, all that good stuff, BMI. I've been loving it, using it, seeing the results from the hustle has been fun. Stop measuring your weight. Start measuring your health with Fit Track. Go to getfittrack.com/RBP to take 50% off your order. 50! That's half. Plus, for a limited time, you can also save an additional 10%. That's getfittrack.com/RBP to save 50% plus get an additional 10% off your order. Don't miss out on this amazing limited time offer, RBP gang. Get fittrack.com/RBP today. Next segment. Whistleblower with Tim Livingston. Now, we're joined by my friend Tim Livingston, longtime sports journalist and the creator/host of the 10-episode podcast Whistleblower that investigates the NBA's over 15-year-old gambling scandal centered around now disgraced former referee Tim Donaghy, who was found to and later admitted to manipulating the outcomes of the games he refereed in order to make money for himself and partners who had connections to organized crime. Tim, obviously after this story broke a long time ago, it was huge, and then it went away fairly quickly and without much fuss, considering. What the hell made you want to do a podcast about Donaghy and the NBA betting scandal, considering how long ago it was, and when did you start?
I met Donaghy. So it all started, I wrote an article in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
That's how long I've been chasing this story. And the article in 2012 said in so many words that I believe what Tim Donaghy is saying about the greater NBA. And what Donaghy was saying about the greater NBA is that the league had a wink-wink agreement with its referees that certain teams were supposed to advance to the NBA Finals, that series were supposed to get extended to maximize revenue. Basically every NBA playoff game that we watch, so think about like a 4-game sweep versus a 7-game series, every game that is televised in the playoffs makes the NBA tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
So it just made sense. What Donaghy was saying made sense, and I didn't think it was conspiracy. I thought there was a lot of fact, and there was a lot of things that lined up in what he was saying. And because of the state of media, especially at that time, nobody was going to touch this guy. Nobody was going to give him the light of day. And I wrote an article that said that I believed him, and that is what kicked this odyssey off, because he reached out to me in kind of a, like sad, pathetic manner, saying thank you so much for writing this article. And that's what kicked this off. So 8 years ago,
8 years.
I had the stupidity or the balls, or call it whatever you want to call it, to say that I thought that what this guy was saying had merit, and that we shouldn't completely discard him because he was a criminal and, a disgraced, as you said poignantly, a disgraced referee. So that's what kicked this thing off, is kind of looking a layer deeper and not believing what David Stern and the NBA were spoon feeding all of us fans.
I'll tell
Absolutely.
you, Chris, as a dude, and Tim, as a dude who's a huge NBA fan, this is something that the league has dealt with basically every season, really since Tim's outage as a dude who was fixing games. It was like, look, everybody's always known that element. If an NBA playoff series between like the Celtics and the Cavs is incredibly dramatic and fun and entertaining and has LeBron James and all these all-stars, and I'm speaking to like back, several years ago when that would have been a matchup that we saw, that's, like you said, going to make millions and millions of dollars in advertising revenue, millions and millions of people tune in. Obviously, just point-blank common sense, the longer that the series goes, the happier everybody is, right? The fans, with the exception of probably the players who have to play and work more.
Sure.
Everybody's in for that. Everybody wants more sports, more basketball. And if you could find a way to do it that wasn't detrimental to the game, it would have worked for everybody. But the thing is, especially with the NBA, there's always been this feeling like, is this a little like wrestling?
Well, it brings up the money over morals issue again. What we talked about with, China and everything going on over the last year, choosing markets that they're going to be able to make more money in,
Yeah, but in a realm that's entertainment-based, it's different. There's less morals around this for me than there are like, obviously things that affect people's day-to-day lives. But you could obviously argue that the NBA does too. It's this fascinating element of the league, my favorite professional sports league in that, and the one that I pay the closest attention to, where even the most hardcore informed fans that are not like, I'm not some wild conspiracy theorist, all right? I don't buy into most of that shit. This though, like this thing, it had weight to it. It had a feel, like even the most hardcore NBA fans were willing to admit, like, yeah, there's some weird shit going on in the NBA. So fascinating to me that you dove in 8 years ago and really just with getting this correspondence with Tim Donaghy going to where, like, as you put it in the first episode, y'all sort of become like friends, right?
We become friends, and Ross, to your point, what's super interesting is like, and just in general, what we wanted to explore was the NBA. Is it entertainment, or is it a genuine athletic competition?
Yeah.
Right.
Is it a meritocracy? And this goes for everything in our society.
Yeah.
Right. That's why politics is so interesting right now.
Mm-hmm.
And why there's a debate over the authenticity of media, politics, sports, everything.
It's all wrapped up in that same sort of thing. Yeah.
It's all wrapped up in the same questioning the man, if you will. So, and if you look at our story, and really Donaghy, and this, I know, Ross, you're a Rockets fan, and James Harden and Scott Foster, right? Because Scott Foster is a character that we really analyze because he was Donaghy's best friend.
Scott Foster, another NBA referee, and one that notoriously, especially for Rockets fans, like literally, if he is chosen as one of the referees for one of our games, Rockets Twitter just becomes it's a Scott Foster bitch fest. Like, looks like we're going to lose tonight. Got Scott Foster back. Like, and it's not Tim Livingston versus Donaghy. It's tough. Y'all both named Tim. it's not even like, it feels like the NBA doesn't even really try to hide or mask that.
No.
Well, I mean, the irony was not lost on me on the time that you guys went to the 76ers game and, you bet the 6-point cover and Scott Foster had an opportunity to call a foul on Embiid, who shoots 82% from the free throw line, and one of the most, as you, I believe, stated, one of the most liberal with the whistle. Yeah, referees in the league doesn't call the foul to get the cover. I mean, to be there live, that's pretty incredible to be like in the system and see it happen in front of your eyes like that.
That was insane. And that we lost $500 with him not making that call. But at the same time, I was very cognizant in the moment how much better that was for our story.
Right.
Absolutely.
I guess now, like, I'd rather have,
the $900,
$1,000. Yeah, I'd rather have the $950 than zero. But anyways, it was bizarre. It was that whole game was so strong. And that was a well officiated game, because Scott Foster doesn't have beef with Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons, I guess. But if you go back to the James Harden example, think about how ridiculous that is as basketball fans, that when a referee is assigned to a game, that's the reaction. And that's a very acceptable reaction. If you look at Houston's win-loss record with James Harden and Scott Foster in those games, it's atrocious. And it's the same with Chris Paul. Chris Paul and Scott Foster have a very public beef. And did the NBA assign last season, or in the bubble, the Rockets Thunder Game 7 in the opening round series? Did they intentionally assign Scott Foster to that game? I mean, I think so. Don't you?
That always ends
make
up
it more
being,
interesting.
Ends up being the question, right? Is like, okay, if it's not full blown fixing, it's at the very least feels like they're trying to always control the narrative in the NBA, right? Which is the thing that, like, Tim Donaghy was the first guy who really got outed in this world of NBA referees, where there was clearly, like, at the very least, several different characters known throughout the fan bases of the NBA as shifty, or like that seemingly had their own motivations for doing their jobs. It didn't just seem to be about refereeing the NBA games. You've got guys who, when they do their foul calls, they make it so much more about them. It's so much more animated than other referees who are clearly just there to keep the game on the line. Like, it's just like the world of NBA referees was always fascinating. Tim Donaghy's story made it a million times more fascinating. That thing sort of like died on the vine almost. Obviously, the NBA doesn't want it to be further talked about or investigated, or that is not a good thing for a sports league to endure. At the same time, us as fans and us as a people, we want the truth.
Yeah.
We want to know what we're watching is real or fake. And if it's somewhere in between, it's very confusing, and we'd like a more thorough explanation, basically. And that's really what Whistleblower explores, to me, is that concept.
And the thing that I've learned so far listening to the podcast is, to me, in my eyes, it looks like the NBA kind of doesn't want you to start pulling strings at that, because the thing that I've learned very quickly through episode 5 so far is that the NBA refs are almost like a fraternity.
Yep.
Like, they're all from the same area. They all went to the same schools. They've reffed the same leagues their whole lives. They've known each other forever and ever. When you start looking at that, when, basketball is played at every single down from, church league all the way up to high school across the entire country, much less the entire globe, how are we getting all of these referees from the same county, Delaware County? It doesn't make any sense.
It's insane. And it's really interesting. One thing I haven't really spoken about that we didn't include in the podcast, because I learned this towards the end and it didn't really fit narratively. There's a racial thing too with referees.
Mm-hmm.
The guys from Delaware County are all white, blue collar, white dudes.
Same kind of cats too. Like, even visually, you can just see, like, oh, these are little clone people. Yeah, they look like the same dude.
There was a former NBA coach who said it best. He's like, again, this is all obvious. I give you guys names, but all off the record. He was like, bouncers, police officers, referees. There's good ones, but you always remember the ones who didn't get laid in high school, who are just taking it out on you in that moment. And
I love that you said bouncers instead of cops.
That power complex.
Well, yeah. I mean,
but I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, and the referee. I spoke to the former referee who was a black referee, and he said, "Look, our relationship with the players was like, kind of like an uncle nephew type relationship.
Right.
Like, yeah, you didn't get that call, but chill out. I got you in the next one. There wasn't really any animosity. There was the tension that was there between somebody like Scott Foster, who, by the way, makes close to $1 million a year. Like Scott Foster gets paid very well, but James Harden makes 40, and everybody at the stadium is there to applaud James Harden. He is the show, right? And going back to the entertainment versus pure athletic competition divide, James Harden is who the fans are there to see, and the fans are there to boo Scott Foster.
Right.
So it's a fascinating psychological fuckery between players and referees in general, just the way the entire thing is built in any sport, and especially basketball, where everything happens so fast.
In the NBA, like it honestly, the reason I ended up being part of the mass of people who sort of waved bye-bye to the Tim Donaghy story and just was like, yeah, whatever. Look, the NBA is very, very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And the drama is a huge, huge part of that. It is out of all the sports leagues, it's the one where you get the most personality out of your players because it's 5 guys on the court at the same time, right? Football is way more. Individual sports, totally different type of deal. Golfers typically don't show a ton of personality. It's just a really fascinating thing. And then to speak to what you just touched on, look, 55-year-old white dudes from Delaware can't communicate as well with 20-year-old inner-city black guys as the black referees can. That's just point blank like an obvious communication barrier that the NBA, for especially in the 90s, really struggled with. Like, you'd watch games and it was almost kind of awkward. It was like this weird cultural divide between the referees and the players. It's gotten better. The NBA is very culturally aware and socially aware, which makes this whole element of their organization even more fascinating because they're by far, to me, the most progressive and socially forward-looking league, and they do it with the right reasons most of the time, not like the NFL where they're like, throw pink on everybody for the month of October.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they have real, minus the Los Spurs thing and the Los Rockets, that was like one of the worst ideas in the history of trying to get Hispanic people involved with basketball more. But the league has this duality to it, right? Like,
yeah.
And
the league gets it. The league is like the right amount of woke. You know, and that's the thing with the NBA at this point, and why I thought the timing for our story I felt like this was the time for our story, because 7 or 8 years ago in the David Stern era, things were different. I mean, Adam Silver, it's a totally different regime. The NBA China stuff, you know, that's its whole other issue, and how the NBA handled that,
absolutely,
didn't handle that again. But it's a business. There's billions of dollars of play. You know, most of us can understand like why that was awkward. But anyways, when it comes to like the league now, I think, one interesting thing, Ross, is like, you only recognize a handful of referees at this point.
Yep.
Right.
Most new faces.
Most referees are anonymous. They're not like Dick Pavetta and Joey Crawford and all these guys who, when they officiated a game, you knew the shenanigans were inevitable.
Joey Crawford was the one I was giving the example earlier. He'd run out and be like, ha! Like the most dramatic. It's like the umpire in the MLB who's like, hey, for his strike calls instead of just being like, strike. That was that dude. I hated him so much. He's retired now.
Yeah, because him and Bavetta apparently, and again, those are, I think, the two most pronounced guys from that era. Bavetta apparently had an American Airlines stewardess that he either had an affair with or was just friends with. That Donnie told me a story where he would call her after every playoff game to get a rundown of how much airtime he got. And think about how big of an issue that is, where the referees are more concerned with how much face time they got than he didn't care about how many calls he missed.
That gives you almost like cuck mentality kind of thing.
But
you know what I mean?
Like, that's the thing, is it's because there's what? Tim, how many refs are there on the court? 3 running around
there's
at the
3
same
refs,
time?
and there's only 55 to 60 at a time in the NBA. So it's a really limited pool. And Ross, to your point earlier about all them coming from Delaware, a lot of them coming from one place in Pennsylvania.
Chris's point, in fairness.
Think about that. Oh, it's Chris. Apologies, Chris. So you, I mean, you're not getting the best. There's no system in place to get the best referees in the world,
right?
Like there is to get the best players in the world.
Yeah.
Referees, it was really purely nepotistic, and that's how they got to where they got. And
well, one thing that was fascinating to me is when you were talking about Tim Donaghy's rise to becoming an NFL ref is I think
NBA
ref. is you mentioned something where he was reffing like high school games and college games, and then somebody in his life was like, why don't you just ref pro games? And like that's all. Like that's how it happened. He never grew up wanting to be an NBA ref or anything like that, right?
Yeah, his dad. No, and Donahue's dad was a college ref. His uncle was an NBA ref.
Yeah.
And that was the family business, frankly. And Donahue was he did not. It was not his dream to be. He wasn't like such a passionate basketball fan that he had to be involved with the game throughout his entire life. And no, he saw a path to make really good money in his mid-20s, and he was pretty good. He was by all accounts, by the way, Donahue was like a good ref. If he wanted to be just a really good NBA ref, he had the skills to do that, and he would probably, next to Scott Foster, be the go-to ref for the NBA today. And what's crazy about this scheme and what we unravel in Whistleblower is that if it wasn't for Donahue's partner, this guy, Jimmy Baba Batista, the guy who was the middleman between Donahue and all the big gambling syndicates, including the Gambino crime family, if it wasn't for Baba Batista being addicted to pills and cocaine and God knows what else, and just having, it's a long story. Baba, was an addict and was betting, on lots of other things and going to debt and got in trouble with the wrong people. Tim Donahue could still be doing this today. And
really, to your point, you have to be one of the best to even be able to get away with and that's been the part of it that always felt like the league was aware of. Like they were acutely aware that they had a few guys who were good enough at their jobs to where if they just were constantly aware of where they were trying to keep the score or the game, that it would not be that difficult to sort of keep things within a frame that was predetermined.
Well, that was the fascinating thing to me because, so I'm not a huge NBA fan, Tim. This year, I've really started to get more and more into the NBA because I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. So I grew up a massive Panthers fan, but now that we've brought in LaMelo and a lot of young talent with the Hornets, gives me more and more reason to watch the NBA. So I've gotten into it. I've watched I think 7 out of the 9 games the Hornets have played so far this year. It's been really enjoyable to watch. I've been really enjoying it. But the fascinating thing for me listening to the podcast was the conversation with Mr. Donahue about, was he actually changing the outcomes of these games, or was he just bumping the score to hit the over to make people more money? And that type of conversation where it's was he even really doing anything wrong, or was he just calling fouls that were technically there that most people wouldn't call? But I mean, at the end of the day, it still is a foul. You still can call that foul.
And that's what we explored in the podcast is, who's the real bad guy? Is it Tim Donahue, who, he was fixing games? And the answer is Donahue's not a good guy.
Sure, of course.
By any means. But to your point, there's actually a Charlotte, Minnesota game from that last season in 06-07. And those were those teams were both very mediocre.
Yeah.
Nobody was watching that game. No offense, Chris.
Yeah, no.
Trust me. Nobody cared. And I forget this 5-point spread. And he calls a couple controversial fouls at the end to allow the Timberwolves to cover or something.
Yeah,
like
and again,
that, right?
nobody on ESPN the next day is going to talk about a couple bullshit fouls on a Timberwolves,
especially not to
Bobcats
shit on
game.
the NBA. They really didn't even get into the side of sports journalism on ESPN where they were willing to talk about gambling, and SVP started doing bad beats of the day and shit. But to frame that up for people who don't really watch sports or the NBA, if there are a dozen games tonight, 2 of them, maybe, are the matchups that everybody wants to watch, the marquee matchups that are on national TV. Then there's 10 games that, the little local fan bases, they care about and shit, but nobody cares.
And then on another
nationally.
level, there's 3 games that you literally can't even find on TV anywhere.
Yeah.
That nobody cares
and
about.
Those are the ones where the real opportunity lies during the regular season for some manipulation that gets some money moving around into different directions. Now it gets a lot more difficult in the playoffs. But that's another aspect of the league that's been so fascinating, is that they never seemed to have any shame about that. It just was
well, that's the question is not the question. That's what for me is very clear. I think what we did in this podcast, I think our investigation, again, I'm biased, but I think we took the conspiracy, the theory can be discarded. This is a conspiracy. And so we dug deep and we unraveled a lot of different layers, but at the same time, it goes deeper. And so I don't think for anybody to chalk up the extremely controversial NBA playoff games that were refereed so atrociously that they live forever in infamy. You know, the 2002 Western Conference Finals, the 2006 NBA Finals between the Mavericks and actually there's a Rocket series in there too. The 2005 Western Conference semis, I believe, between Dallas and Houston. There's a handful of series where the referees, and again, these are the most important basketball games ever played, where the referees did their job so atrociously that you have to, I think any rational human being would agree that something foul was at play.
Right.
And that's what we dive into in the podcast. And that's where you have to ask, is fixing Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals in front of millions of people. That was, a game that was so bad that Ralph Nader wrote a letter to David Stern, that Michael Wilbon and every other basketball pundit across the country publicly said, like, this wasn't basketball. This was atrocious.
This was embarrassing.
Is that worse? Yeah. Is this worse than, what Tim Donaghy was doing? And the answer, I think, is yes.
Dude, there was a series, and I want to say it was one of the more recent Rockets Warriors series, where it was just so blatant, like so obvious that they were trying to fuck us, or at least make sure that we were able to fuck ourselves by missing 22 3-pointers in Game 7. I was just like, there was never a chance. Like, there was never a hope in my head that, like, oh, we're going to win this series. Like, because I knew what was better for the NBA.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, when you think about it, money-wise, you think about, like, photos you've seen of, like, say, kids in Africa wearing, like, a 96 Bulls championship T-shirt, right? Nobody, like, that wouldn't exist if it was a 96 Hornets championship.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right. There's branding for them to be worried about, and it's like...
with the big-name
It
franchises.
got to a point where it felt like, Tim, that the NBA cared more about growth, money, expansion into international markets, and the continued entertainment of its fans than it did about the authenticity of the product on the court. And that sort of became a part of the culture, right? And that's the thing that this show... Your podcast is so fascinating to me for that reason. It's my favorite league. It's a story I've been aware of for many, many years, and it's one that never felt like it really went away, that still affects, like, the NBA day by day, and that many, many, many viewers, including myself and everybody in NBA Twitter, like, it's just something that at this point we've sort of accepted. Like people bet lines based on who they think the NBA would prefer to win games and shit, because the NBA story is the story that matters. It's not about your fucking team. Nobody cares. It's the NBA and how the league goes. That's the thing that matters. So, y'all were recognized, Tim, as one of the best podcasts of 2020 by Spotify, and it's the thing that reminded me to even get you on the show and talk to you about this. I was going through Spotify. Y'all were like front page, top podcast of 2020. Boom, Whistleblower right there. So in closing, I wanted to ask you, like, two questions. One, and then I'm sure Chris has a couple more for you too. At what point did you feel, because I know it came at some point, at what point did you feel you were maybe in danger, like that you could be putting yourself in a precarious position where people might not like what you were doing with your podcast? And then was there any one moment that was like the most click in your head, like, oh my God, this is a really insane story I've involved myself in, even more so than people maybe realized? Was there a moment like that?
I think those are two great questions. Part one is I was always worried about putting this out there. I mean, the NBA is a multi-billion-dollar company. They have deep pockets and
A lot of powerful owners.
Yeah, we reveal kind of, you guys, like, later in the series, and I don't want to give anything away, but we reveal that the Donaghy scandal had, as you can assume, for those who don't know the story, yeah, it's a huge NBA scandal that I'm implying there's a conspiracy to cover it up. And so how high did that cover up go? Well, I would argue that I went to the highest levels of government. And I don't want to give too much away, but, like, there's some really powerful, motherfuckers involved in this story that I was definitely worried about and wary of, and didn't want to, ruffle, I was worried about ruffling those feathers, but felt journalistically and felt that for whatever God's reason was for connecting me with Tim Donaghy, that I had to get the truth out there for every basketball fan, just every person who thought there might be something awry with the NBA. So the answer is I felt that danger from the moment we started this project. The other question, I sat down with Tim Donaghy at Disneyland, and you guys listen to the podcast, the story. It's in episode 1. I met Tim Donaghy at Disneyland in 2013. That was the first time we met in person. And the stories that he told me over our 3-hour conversation, I knew from that moment, I was like, man, this thing is huge. And my jaw was just on the floor. And we couldn't report on a lot of that stuff because we couldn't, it was just Donaghy's word, which you got to take with a big grain of salt. But I know that he was telling me the truth about what he was saying about his former colleagues and about some of these crazy NBA stories and about, just how big of a freaking shit show the NBA was in the 90s and probably until like until the scandal, until 2007.
Right.
It was an absolute mess. And you can't, anybody who felt their team got screwed in a big playoff game, who, people tell you to stop whining, tell you to stop bitching that you're, that you're wrong and your team lost and, you should just suck it up.
Yep.
I think we, in our findings and our reporting, give those people a pretty big platform to come back and say, I was right. I was right. This was happening. There was something devious at play here.
I've got one more kind of point from my side, and then Chris, anything else you've got to throw at Tim, please do. Tim, we've seen how upset sports fans become when cheating is involved at the highest level. The Houston Astros, my favorite baseball team, won the World Series in 2017 using some, I'll just say, questionable strategies regarding sign stealing. Now, America as a whole is ready to burn every Astros player at the stake and play. I have a wallet that I recently replaced because Chris gave me a better wallet, a man wallet, one that is not an Astros embroidered wallet. When I would take my wallet out at the counter at restaurants or like set it on the table, people would look at me like, fuck you, dude.
You get a stank eye.
That's over like some shit. One series, 1 year, one trophy. With the NBA and this scandal, we're talking about at least a decade, basically, like where there was a lot more to worry about, and everybody's just like, fuck it. I can't wrap my head around that part. Where I'm like, for me, if this story is the way that you present it in your podcast, it doesn't make sense to me that you're not ending up on every major news network discussing it, because people need to be made aware of how insanely, at the very least, like suspicious a lot of this stuff with the NBA and their referees and their system is. But like you said, man, and like the show really digs into at the beginning, it didn't go the way it felt it should have once that broke. And so much of that was like the David Stern era of the NBA was almost like communist Russia or some shit. Like they just had so much control and the media was so wrapped up in it. And to Chris's point earlier, like ESPN's not going to shit on the NBA because they have deals with the NBA to broadcast their games. It takes an independent journalist like Tim being like, no, this is a story someone needs to tell, to go and do it, which is why I respect the hell out of what you've done here, especially putting yourself on the line where, like, look, at this point in 2021, if you haven't figured out that people in power can't be trusted, I don't know what to tell you, but like that's a dangerous thing to put yourself in the line of fire, especially in the name of something that, let's be frank, is a game.
Yeah. Well, I think a game that makes billions of dollars every year.
And that's where it gets really weird, right?
And also, I think on your point there, Ross, and tell me if you feel the same way, Tim. Like with the Astros, it's really easy to be really pissed at just the Astros, right? They're one team from one location.
It's easily
if you're an LA
understandable.
fan, if you're an LA fan, you can hate the Astros. It kind of goes back to like what we were talking about earlier with politics too. It's way harder to be mad at the system as a whole. Like it's because it's like, what do you do? Like,
yeah,
who do I
bitch to?
Yeah, who do I get mad at if the NBA as a system is fucked? Like, how can I be upset at the whole system?
It's
I guess
also
I just
harder-
kind of have to live with that.
It's harder to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same kind of deal. It's anything crooked, right? It has that feel to it that you're just like, I don't know. And the bigger it is, the harder it is to understand, the less people are willing to dig into it.
And so I think that's why, and did you see this in your findings, Tim? Like around 2007, I feel like it was swept under the rug so quickly because a lot of fans
We didn't want it. We didn't want the league to be ruined.
Yeah, they didn't.
That was it for me.
Yeah,
I was willing to walk away with everybody else because I didn't want my favorite sport to be destroyed. That was it.
And you find who, it's not like as an adult, and I think it's still the best analogy. You don't want like in your 30s to find out Santa Claus isn't real.
A lot of people don't know.
Right.
Tim, same vein politically. A lot of people don't want to find out that like the story of America isn't real the way they thought it was, right? Like that's that same thing. It's like we don't want our institutions that we love shit on. It's hard for a lot of Americans to grapple with that in the way of politics. It's hard for a lot of NBA fans to grapple with that in the way of the NBA. And again, Tim, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today and answer all of our questions. I want to hear anything else you have to say in the next few minutes. I'm not going to interrupt you or ask any more questions. I swear to God. Anything else we need to know about the pod, everywhere Ross, we can listen to it, where we can follow you, hit me with everything.
Appreciate it, Ross. And you can ask me any question, anytime, anywhere.
I appreciate that.
I'll get back to you. Ross and I go way back. And again, appreciate you having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've gotten fucked up together. That's no lie.
I was going to say, I mean, I obviously, like I'm sure many of your listeners and followers applaud your sobriety. And I was doing the math when you posted about your 4 years. And I was like,
3 years, but thank you.
Oh, man. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Still
I was
huge.
like, I was like, was I, when we got really messed up in Austin, like how close was I to that?
To the end?
Tim, you were the breaking point. You were the breaking point.
Was that me?
I hear about it all the time.
That was all y'all, man. The fucking California people come and mess up my whole shit.
Oh, I mean, we can all blame Matt Cisneros about that.
That's fair.
real.
That's
that
fair.
was
now our ad sales
That was
guy.
before he had a kid. So
what a universe, man.
Cisneros, shout out Matt Cisneros. But no, appreciate you guys having me on. You can find me at Tim Like Sports on Twitter. You
Great
can find
handle.
the podcast wherever. Thank you. You can find the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc. And Ross, your last point about a lot of people listen to this. We have a lot of people at the major media outlets. Some have talked about it a lot because of fear of retribution from the NBA. Have not, and getting on shows like this with big audiences that have passionate audiences is huge for us to keep spreading the word, because the NBA we've obviously reached out to the NBA on multiple occasions. They've never answered any of our questions. We're just going to keep sweeping this thing under the rug until we cause a big enough kerfuffle.
Did they have to address
really
it?
Really excited to use the word kerfuffle. Didn't see that coming. To address it. So again, appreciate you guys having me on, and this was a lot of fun.
Tim, I'm excited to finish Whistleblower. I know all of our audience will go out and listen to it and support y'all as well. Thank you again for taking the time today. Great stuff. As an NBA fan, it's very much appreciated, just like the time today. So have a great rest of your Monday, buddy, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys. Talk soon.
That was it. Timmy! Tim's a good dude. Him and I met several years ago at my old company, and we worked on some different stuff together, and I was able to hang out with him a few times. I met his wife at the time, too. Had a blast. And when I found out that their pod actually ended up being one of Spotify's best of 2020, I was like, gotta talk to Tim ASAP. Obviously, the NBA being something I'm obsessed with, it's one of the more fascinating sports stories in history to me. Y'all go listen to the show. Go listen to Whistleblower wherever podcasts are available. 10 episodes. Coles is already through 5. I think I'm through 3.5 or 4.
Yeah, they're like 20, 30 minutes a piece. They're not very long.
Easy,
super
very
digestible.
fun.
Yeah, really entertaining. Very, very, very well produced. Very well produced.
It is a very well done show.
Sound design, intros, cuts, everything. Yeah, it was very, very, very well done.
Super impressive, and very happy for Tim.
Yeah, as somebody that was too
everybody
young,
in their crew that put this together, because it's pretty awesome.
As somebody that was too young to obviously remember when this happened in my life, and somebody that at the time when the Charlotte Bobcats were still a thing, obviously did not care about the NBA in any way, shape, or form. It was really cool. It's really cool. It's been awesome to listen to the podcast, and then it was awesome getting to talk to Tim about it as well, just because of how fascinating this is, and really how it is still ongoing, like we talked about, and how deep this may go. So that was awesome. I really enjoyed that.
That was wild stuff.
And
wild stuff.
Tim, while Ross may be Cali sober at this time, I am not. So next time you're in Austin, let me know. Let's go get a drink.
I can still go. I'm allowed. I just don't drink.
Well, I don't know if we want you.
At Tim Like Sports on Twitter to give Tim a follow, and then it's at Whistleblower Pod on, let me make sure I've got all the different platforms here that we need to plug. At Whistleblower on Twitter, at Whistleblower Pod on Instagram. Follow, listen, rate, review, enjoy, and that will do it for today's show. But before you head out to take on the world, it's time for some very important announcements. First and foremost, you've been saddled with 3 legal obligations as a result of having listened to this entire podcast, the first of which is that you must rate and review our show. Give us a few sentences about why you enjoy it, 5 stars, And then you can move on to your second legal obligation, which is to share the show with one person. Could be a friend or a family member, a coworker, a neighbor, somebody you think is interested in the NBA or wants to talk mental health with us or whatever it may be. Share the show with one person this week, one person next week, one person every week until the week you die. Then you can check that second box and move on to your third and final legal obligation, which is to support our sponsors who support us and keep us in business. Go to liquidiv.com. Use that promo code Ross. Get 25% off anything on Liquid IV's website. Go to cutsclothing.com/RBP for 15% off the only shirt worth wearing. And of course, fittrack.com/RBP to start measuring health instead of just weight. Support our sponsors who support us and keep us in business. We appreciate y'all. Those are your 3 legal obligations. After you complete all 3, I can call off the dogs. We don't have to see each other in court, and we can all live long and prosper. We are on social media, believe it or not. You can follow us on Instagram at the Ross Bolen Podcast, on Twitter at Ross Bolen Pod, and on Facebook.com/Ross Bolen Podcast. Follow me, Ross Bolen, on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at WRBOLEN, at WR Bolen. And Coles and I are live a few times a week on Twitch.tv/Boss Rollin'. That's Ross Bolen with the B and the R reversed. Come through anytime you see us live on Twitch.tv/Boss Rollin'. Christopher, where can everybody follow you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Q0ULS. You can find me on Instagram at ChrisSC99, and you can find me on Snapchat at Chris_Coulson. That's COULSON.
Check out Bolen Media's television and film podcast, Oysters, Clams, and Cockles, formerly the #1 Game of Thrones podcast in the world, available wherever RBP is available. If you love TV and movies, you'll love OCC. Barrett and I have started doing the Sopranos watch for him, the first watch, for me a rewatch on the OCC Patreon. We've been discussing that every week. Y'all come through, listen to Oysters, Clams, and Cockles. Again, available wherever you listen to or watch RBP is OCC. And that will do it for RBP 364, produced by Mike Moody Garcia of Permanent Record Studios in Austin, Texas. Coles and I will be back on Wednesday with RBP 365, and then, of course, Friday on patreon.com/Ross Bolen Podcast with another ad-free, additional premium edition of this show.
Yeah.
On Patreon.
Premium.
Huzzah.
Additional.
Go there.
More.
MOAR. You are not alone. Podmen get paid. Respect, Mr. Park. Strength and honor. Gang, gang, gang. Christopher.
Peace be with you.
And also with you.